I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just want to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over everything that happened in episode 5 of the X-Men 97 series. So if you haven't watched that episode yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to Disney+, watch that episode, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
Tune in with me to break down everything from episode 5 of the X-Men 97 series. It's Johnny Rico.
Hello.
Hello.
What? Hi.
I don't know if I am emotionally prepared to go over this episode right now.
Gotta do it, man. This is what happens.
I just gotta rip the Band-Aid off. I mean, that goes right into what I was about to say. I can sum up this episode with 2 words.
Emotional damage.
It was just like everything just happened so fast. It was so happy to start.
Yep, classic. The feeling of utopia before the big shit hits the fan moment, right?
Holy shit, man! Holy shit! All right, yeah, there's so much that we got to get into. We're kind of just tiptoeing around everything because we're going to talk more about the emotionally damaging part of meat of the episode, I guess, in our takeaways. But before we get to that, Rico, do you have some instant reactions to episode 5?
Yeah, this was definitely like the big whoa episode of the season so far with everything. They set up everything pretty nicely with all this great character work with kind of multiple love triangles storylines. You kind of want to, okay, this is like we're kind of getting this kind of character driven episode. Yeah. And then I remember thinking while I was watching the episode, like, this is kind of going on for a little while. Like, we'll see how much time is left. And I noticed we had like a good chunk of the episode. I'm like, oh, I think something is about to happen here. I think as soon as I did that, that's when everything like really went to shit. So, yeah, it was a pretty impactful episode with some pretty heavy moments. But one of the things I've been noticing about the show as I've been watching like these past few weeks is during the intro. The intro is never the same ever. Every single time we're getting kind of like varied intros or varied versions of the intro, where we're kind of getting like little cuts of footage that like kind of tell us like what the story about like what characters we're gonna see in the episodes. Like in this particular version of the intro, we actually got some shots I think with like Nightcrawler and I think fighting along with Gambit. So it's like they're kind of giving you like ideas like, okay, you get to see this person here at some point, and like the Morlocks are gonna be covered during the this episode, of course. So I really like that. They're always finding ways to make it creative so that you have to watch the intro every single time. Like it's not just enough that the song is so great, but there's visual cues in there that make it really interesting as well. And I'm pretty sure we saw a freaking watcher during this episode. So that's some pretty wild stuff.
We did. Would you like to get to some big takeaways so we can talk about that? Awesome. All right, I'm going to kick off big takeaways. And yeah, I'm kicking off with my big takeaway with, holy shit, we got an appearance of Future Cable. That in and of itself was awesome. But just like you were saying, I in a super emotionally damaging episode, we got some really big like cameos. We got
major cameos, yeah.
Future Cable for a split second. We got a lot of Nightcrawler, which is awesome because Nightcrawler is absolutely,
yeah, it's great to see her in there for sure.
Up there in some of my favorite X-Men in general. And then just like you said, there was a blink and you miss it, the Watcher, and it's like the Watcher from the What If series type of thing. So like,
well, we've seen the Watcher in the series before, even going back to the 90s, like particularly during the Phoenix saga, we see him as he watches the Phoenix kind of soar through space along with Thor and Doctor Strange. So I really like that. Every time we see the Watcher, though, it's pretty much an indication that some pretty wild stuff is about to go down.
Because he's watching everything.
Oh, he's got his popcorn ready for some pretty cataclysmic stuff to happen.
Yeah, but what I was gonna say is why that's super important, and just kind of like you said, like an Easter eggy moment is that there are now rumors that we could potentially see some of the X-Men in the new season of What If, like
Possibly, yeah.
moving forward. I heard potentially Storm, maybe some other people, type of thing. So it's possible. But yeah, I just wanted to accent kind of the brighter moments that we got so many cool appearances by classic characters and stuff like that in a emotionally damaging driven episode. So there was some light, some happy moments, like just like having like some appearances that were pretty cool to see. I really hope this is not the last time we're seeing Cable. I have a theory, a question that I'm going to put out there during my predictions and stuff like that. So maybe that'll tie into potentially getting more Cable before the season's over. But before I get too far ahead of myself, Rico, what were some of your big takeaways from episode 5?
Yeah, it was cool to see Cable again, and one of the things that was cool is it was kind of a revelation for his character, because I think now that we've kind of seen the whole story with his birth and all the stuff that was kind of leading up to the big attack on Genosha, we were getting like little psychic cues. Some characters were getting little psychic cues.
Yeah.
Everything happened. I believe Madeline was one. I don't know if Jean was, but Madeline got one, and then of course when she was getting like the foreshadowing of what the actual conversation she had with Cable early on. I think because we saw the actual birth event of Cable this time, like they finally formed that psychic bond between them, I guess, because they've interacted in the past, and I guess they just didn't have that bond yet because the moment of his birth hadn't happened yet, I guess, in the continuity of the series. And so now that we kind of got like that "I'm sorry, mom" moment, it was just kind of like, oh, okay, now we've actually established that Madeline Pryor is Cable's mom in this, because we didn't know if they were doing like, are they making her Jean's mom, Jean Cable's mom or whatever. So I think that was a kind of a cool way to connect that. And I also just love the whole storyline between Madeline, Jean, and Scott. Just kind of like the whole conversation in the mind and stuff like, and just kind of like they're really putting Cyclops kind of at the forefront of a lot of the storytelling and in most of these episodes, because he's dealing with a lot of shit right now, and I think it's really cool that we're focused on that. I love the scene between him and the television interviewer where he's just like, no, you need us, basically, like, if we were a lot like you guys would all be dead, basically. So I thought that was a really like powerful moment from him, and just kind of getting to see a different side of this character, of course. But yeah, the real meat of the episode is the big attack on Genosha that just comes out of feels like nowhere. And I just kind of like the way that they disguise the attack with like the whole flamboyancy of the show, like the fireworks and stuff like that. So you don't really know it's coming until it hits the viewer the same way it hits like the no show itself. Really wild stuff. And it ultimately leads up to this big sacrifice moment from Gambit. Because we have this master mold, basically like kaiju thing attacking the city, which I'll get into more of that later. But it's taken out everybody. Like it's pretty wild the amount of people we see get vaporized in this episode, and we see Gambit pretty much have this moment where he sees no other option but to basically like allow the mastermind to impale him so that he can actually charge up the thing itself, and it leads to the ultimate moment where he uses his own catchphrase.
The name's Gambit, mon ami. Remember it.
And the thing blows up, and it's probably one of the greatest pieces of Marvel television I've ever seen.
It's absolutely incredible, and all the emotions are there. Like,
oh man, yeah, all the stuff with Rogue leading up to it, and the fact that she basically made a choice to him by saying I picked Magneto, but she had to kind of figure that out for herself, but it was too late for her to kind of like tell Gambit that she made the right choice, basically. So, yeah, there's a lot of heavy moments in this episode, and of course it wraps up with Rogue kind of painfully just saying that she couldn't feel Gambit, not just physically but also emotionally, which is also a big connection to WandaVision as well, because Wanda says it. Yeah, it's a big thing when they talk about it. Like it's just a big connector moment right there for sure.
Yeah, that was an incredible, like, I don't even know if to call it an Easter egg moment or just like a parallel moment, but yeah, like immediately when I heard that, I was like,
yeah,
oh shit.
It also ties in when you hear Storm saying like she couldn't feel like the wind in the fingers. It's all like that weird where you hear silence and you just feel this pain through their voice, and it's just it's real heartbreaking stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, It's crazy. I've had conversations with a couple of people about this series in general, because it's been out, and a lot of people have been kind of talking about it and everything. And their first reaction was, I don't know if I'm gonna like it because I'm not really into cartoons type of thing. And I was like, you don't understand. Like,
Oh yeah.
you do not understand when a series in general can get this amount of emotion like in an episode. Like, it doesn't matter whether it was live action or cartoon. Like, it was a very emotional scene, a very emotional episode in general.
Yeah, a good story is a good story. It doesn't
Yeah,
really the medium shouldn't matter.
exactly. But yeah, Rico, would you like to get to some predictions?
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, why don't you kick off predictions?
Okay, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing like what's going to come from the out, like the aftermath of the attack on Genosha, because there's a lot of different possibilities of like one who's responsible for it. That they can go many different ways in this. In the books, Genosha is actually destroyed by Cassandra Nova, who right now is kind of a popular name within the MCU Marvel TV verse kind of world right now, because she's going to be the lead villain of Deadpool and Wolverine. So a lot of people started speculating whether they're kind of going to set up Cassandra Nova in this series as kind of like an appetizer for seeing her in that movie. We do hear Cable mention that he is coming to Madeline, so there could be something there where they've been taking plots of storylines and swapping out villains. Like, of course, even with Cable himself, like the person who's responsible for his techno-organic virus is supposed to be Apocalypse originally, and then they changed it this past season to Mr. Sinister in episode 2. So they very well could be swapping out villains. Like, it could be Apocalypse for all we know. It could be somebody else that we don't see coming. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do with that, particularly because the way it happens in this episode is basically how Cassandra Nova does it in the comics. She takes a mastermind sentinel and basically destroys the city the same way. And the numbers are catastrophic, just to say the least. So yeah, I would love to see her in the series just in general. I think that'd be a cool way to introduce her just to the public audience. But also, next week we have Life Death Part 2, and that's going to get an entire episode this time. I was talking about how oh man, I wish this wasn't a half episode. I wish it's got a whole 30. And we're going to get the whole resolution of that story in a whole episode. So I'm very, very excited about that, because I just read the Life Death comic. And it handles some of the stuff a little bit differently, but I love the little elements of it that they do incorporate. And I'm very excited to see how they wrap up the storyline in next week's episode.
Very cool. Yeah, I saw that too. I'm super excited. And just to take a breather from everything that happened in this episode, I think it'll be a welcomed breakaway episode.
They're pulling punches this season, man. I feel like there hasn't been a super lighthearted one, other than maybe the Mojo 15-minute episode, basically. So we've had 15 minutes of lighthearted fun in this episode. So yeah, I would like a little bit of brevity here, but we're coming up on a big 3-episode arc too to wrap up the season. And they've been saying that this was kind of the setup for that one being a big whoa. So yeah, I just feel like we're just getting ready to get our hearts stripped out again.
Yeah. Anyway, so for my prediction, I actually had 2 questions, and if you don't know directly the answers, totally understand. If anyone out there who's watching this knows the answers, put them down in the comments below, stuff like that. 2 questions after watching the episode. First one, super simple. Do we think Magneto is actually dead? Here's why I'm wondering. When we had the Mastermind Sentinel basically impaled Gambit, it said mutant eliminated or terminated or something like that.
I think it was Omega mutant. I think, yeah.
Well, no, but that was but that was for the Magneto part, which happened before the Gambit part. What I'm saying is he was just calling Gambit a mutant or target or something, whatever. It wasn't Omega level. I understand that, but it said mutant eliminated or target eliminated when Gambit was impaled. Gambit was not dead yet, because this is before Gambit even blew up the Mastermind Sentinel. So what I'm wondering is, does that or did that now that it's blown up. Sentinel basically say it's eliminated when it thinks it's neutralized type of thing, not like scanning, because like I said, Gambit wasn't dead yet. Gambit was still alive enough to deliver the final blow, and it had already said that he was eliminated. So I'm wondering if it thought Magneto was destroyed, vaporized, but Magneto got out in the split second, or you know what I mean? Like there is a chance, because we never see Magneto's body. We never see any indication of left like remains or anything like that. And I get it. You know, Rogue went to Gambit's dead body. I get that. And so, you know, we just didn't have time. It wasn't like she went to both of them or they were both in the same spot or anything like that. But there's always that chance in comics and in comic book movies. If you don't see somebody dead, there's always a chance that they could technically not be dead. So that's my first thought, my first wondering. My second is, you mentioned it. We're getting like a 3-parter. Do you think they're setting us up with Cable getting ripped back, that we are going to have some sort of plot where it's going to be a time traveling, trying to redo the events that happened in this episode?
Sure hope not.
You don't think we're going to get... I'm not saying it'll be successful. I'm just wondering if one of those 3 parts follows Cable maybe trying to change it and then realizing he can't, and like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm wondering if we're going to get... That's where what I was like saying earlier. I'm hoping we kind of get more Cable. And I could see that being one of the plots to part of one of these, that 3-parter at the end type of thing. Maybe it's unsuccessful and then we just have to live with what happened, or maybe he's able to change some stuff, but someone still has to sacrifice to get rid of the Mastermind Sentinel. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm wondering if we get like that from a different point of view, like from Cable's point of view type of thing, trying to change things, and he's able to, you know, change the right pieces, but it still ends in disaster. It's just certain pieces are changed. I could see that kind of being a plot device. What do you think?
Like, maybe, yeah, I could definitely say. From what I'm reading here, it looks like the finale is actually going to be three weeks. Like, so it's going to part 1, 2, 3 are actually going to go 3 different weeks. So, so that makes me think that they're going to like each episode will pack like a big punch within itself, because they're going to leave you with that like week long got to be like, what's going to happen in this next part? What's going to happen in this next part? But yeah, I've the whole like using the time travel to fix things, like they've kind of done like the Days of Future Past storyline. It's in itself. I'm not like saying like this is what that would be in a sense. But they've definitely used it before, and sometimes I find it a little bit of a trope when it uses. So because when you reverse stuff and then but almost swap it for other things, like I think it takes away some of the stakes sometimes. But I think like we should leave some of these deaths definitely should stay. Like I think Gambit, like as much as I love Gambit, I think he's got to stay. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking at it as like a in comparison to like a Flashpoint, where like, you know, if you change one thing, it's gonna have an effect on another thing. Like you know what I mean? Like I'm not saying like they're gonna
like butterfly effect stuff.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he's gonna be able to reverse it so it never happens. I'm just saying like, could we see, you know, the events that just happened with like another version of like that of Cable trying to change the events, and maybe like he's able to manipulate some stuff, and maybe that's what he was trying to do, and why people were getting kind of the psychic tap on their head like at key moments. Like maybe he was trying to adjust certain things, but he couldn't figure out what was supposed to make the right changes, type of thing. And ultimately, there has to be a sacrifice.
Yeah, the kind of like psychic little like kind of cues they were getting, they're like the headaches and stuff were making me. That's what one of the things that made me thought it was like Cassandra Nova related. And then of course there's still like the element of like bringing back Charles, because Charles is technically still alive, and I think there's still something that's going to happen there with probably within that 3-episode arc. I have to imagine that's where he's going to come in, as there's going to be a big moment with Charles. I would imagine. But I also thought about the fact that there's a very good chance that Magneto could actually himself could be behind the attack on Genosha, and he's just been playing everybody from the beginning. He was protecting Leech, who has the ability to damper powers, and that's could easily make him undetectable to Mastermind Sentinels probably. But like the way he's kind of used everything to manipulate everything to like his power, and especially the way he was kind of like heralded as this hero. Like he's the last person people would expect right now because we've kind of been built to believe that he's on this redemption tour. But at the end of the day, Magneto is one of the greatest villains of all time, and I think what better way to do that than like him reveal like, yeah, this is all me from the beginning. Like, what's up? And then that would be a great way to bring Charles back in too, because then you have these two great minds on two opposite sides again, and we're kind of back off to the original races of the original series, where it's like these two kind of going head to head again. And I mean, the freaking intro is still the two teams running at each other at the end. I want to see like the Brotherhood come back.
Look, there's so many questions after this episode. So many things we're not going to get answered next episode. I mean, obviously, we're going to get a lot of answers that we want. We're going to see more of Storm's story and hopefully seeing her progression of getting her powers back and stuff like that. So, yes, that's a story that I definitely want to see the answers to. But everything that this set up, we're not going to get a payoff for at least a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. We're going to have
so many questions right now. But as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. Who do you think is behind this attack? Do you think it could potentially be Magneto? Could it be Cassandra Nova? Could it be Mr. Sinister? Could it be Apocalypse? We don't know. At this point, there are no wrong answers. And who do you think we're going to see pop up next? And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Popping Off presents That Recap Show.